This is a prime example of why I have trouble taking polls seriously. Specifically, I've been seeing the growing number of Canadians who want to join the European Union. Polls suggest that it's nearly half of us. Now, I'm reluctant to suggest that those in favor haven't really thought it through, rather than they simply have different values. But I do suggest some serious thinking before you sign on to that. Sign on to being the 28th nation in the EU. It's not that I don't like my visits to Italy or Portugal or Germany, France or Spain. Each one has their own particular charm. But that is a long way from saying, I'd like to join the European Union, which, by the way, means a loss of individual country sovereignty in many areas, including trade, where individual members cannot make trade agreements. And while many who support becoming an EU member may be reacting to the Trump tariffs, let's keep in mind, make no mistake, the economic choice between aligning with the US versus the EU isn't even close. Last year, Canada did $34 billion in trade with the EU. Hey, we did over 600 billion with the US. As an EU member, though, Canada cannot pass laws that conflict with any EU regulations and directives. For example, there wouldn't be any more supply management. We'd have to adopt EU environmental regulations that clearly have hurt economic growth in the European Union and resulted in some of the highest electricity prices in the world. And you'd have to comply with the uber expensive policies like net zero by 2050, which is estimated to cost between 620 billion euro to 1.5 trillion every year until 2050. I mean, there's more, but I don't want to really get in and just rehash the Brexit exit debate. Instead, I want to focus on the current sorry financial and economic state of the EU and ask, why would we want to see our tax dollars go towards the massive EU bureaucracy, for example? It's estimated to be 60,000 people. And that's on top of the 2.5 to 3.5 million civil servants when the total in the individual countries. But this may be where differing individuals' goals and values kick in. I mean, clearly some Canadians do support increased regulations, more government intervention in society. I mean, millions of Canadians support the massive increase in our own federal government, which has grown like 40% since 2015 under the Liberal government. So adding on the EU bureaucracy under a supranational government in control may be appealing to many. My worry, though, is if Canada joined the EU, it would mean goodbye to the Canadian dollar and adoption of the euro, and with it, a lack of monetary and fiscal flexibility. It would eliminate our ability to have the currency or interest rates reflect the specific economic circumstances of the time, i.e., we'd want lower interest rates or a weaker currency to offset if we had slower economic growth, but that's out the window. EU members also can't print money to help with any debt problems during the crisis, unlike Canada, the US, Japan, UK, who can create money to pay interest on existing bonds or buy government bonds in order to keep the interest rates down, which they all have recently. The bottom line is that the debt burden of individual countries will have a far more onerous impact if we're a member of the EU. Prime Minister Carney states that Canada looks first to the European Union to build a better world. Well, certainly not a better world economically, financially, and Lord help us if we follow their lead on immigration policy. And finally, how many Canadians want to see the escalation of war with Russia? Because that's what we're seeing out of the EU, sending military personnel, supporting drone attacks in Russia, reviving talks of nuclear deterrence, and sending more military equipment. As I say, that's what's happening in the EU. We should have a long look at whether we want to join in on that. But the bottom line is the majority of Canadians are close to it, think joining the EU would be better. I just hope they have a long think about it.